Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast presented by PointsBet. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up to live your bet life. Cubs players arriving today, Friday, in Mesa at Sloan Park. Hopefully Jed and Carter are out there working the phones, making some deals, so we have something to talk about during the podcast live. We're looking for pieces of that puzzle. The whole crew's here. We got the big four ready to line up and slug it. Ryan _A_Herrera, heading to Arizona after this. Yep. Cody Delmendo, Cody _CHGO, and batting cleanup, Corey Freedman, Corey _Cubs. I'm Luke Stuckmeyer, at Luke Stuckmeyer. So we do have some news to get to. No, it's not a signing for the Cubs of a player. It's an extension for David Ross, which I think most people did think was coming at some point in this offseason. Mm-hmm. They've extended him through 2024, club option 2025. If you had to sum up these first couple seasons with David Ross, strange would be the one word for me. Strange. It's just, can you imagine a manager that's had a stranger beginning to his career as a major league manager?
I'd say kind of unlucky, too.
Yep.
Would be one out. I mean, he had the 2020 season, those 60 games, affected by COVID, no fans in the stands.
I'd even say he's been unfairly criticized as well.
That too. I mean,
because his first season was the 2020 season, right? And all things considered, I thought he did pretty well in that. Made the playoffs, and the Cubs were the only team that didn't have any COVID positive tests that season. And then coming into this year, we all kind of knew it was, or not this year, but last season, you kind of knew what was going to happen with everything with Bryant, Rizzo, Baez and them. I thought, basically overall, I thought he's done okay. I think this is the good move for the Cubs.
Yeah, I think the only, like you said, unfairly criticized. I think the only thing that, as far as he hasn't really gotten the fair shake because of the sell-off and because of the COVID year, but how do you let your team lose 11 games in a row that leads to that sell-off? That's maybe one of the things you're David Ross, can he do it? Can he be the manager that can lead the Cubs to the World Series?
Fair point.
Yeah, so we'll see. But I think that's the only part where you're I don't know for sure. But the rest is he hasn't really got the chance.
I think it's hard to have a strong, sure opinion of him as a tactician, right? There's some stuff I haven't loved. Some stuff I think he does a good job of. But I think that's the main point is that, he started his professional coaching career with the COVID season. And so he really has not had a normal season. And this is sort of also not going to be normal, but once it starts, it should be
more normal.
I think we can start to judge him maybe more fairly going into this year.
I mean, that's just a difficult situation to go into, to have to figure out how you're going to work COVID and no fans as your first season as a manager while you're trying to figure out what's on your roster. And then to go through last year. By the way, I do want to apologize. Joey has gotten on the chat over here, our producer. He's not producing today's show, and he says, the whole crew, ? Joey, we miss you today.
We're also missing.
Well, we got Lawrence running the show.
We're also missing Brendan. Brendan was supposed to join the show. Hopefully we can have him here soon.
I'm subbing in.
Yeah,
you guys are stuck with me again.
Corey's subbing in, but hopefully we can get Brendan on the show soon. So, everyone that's gotten to meet us so far can meet him as well.
Darius says, my guys, go Cubs. I mean, I don't think – I wouldn't have been upset if they didn't extend David Ross, but I just think it was expected at this point. And to have a team option in 2025, it seems totally fair on both sides.
I guess his contract was up after the end of this year, so I guess it's kind of nice to get it out of the way so we don't have to talk about it for a full year like they did in the lame duck season for Joe Madden. Obviously, situation much different. When you talked about, he hasn't – we haven't had a chance to really, I guess, see what kind of manager he is. I will say that I think he at least manages a bullpen a way that Joe Madden doesn't, that I support.
You like his bullpen management?
Yeah, because I feel like one of the biggest criticisms that Madden got was the way he managed the bullpen. I think, for the most part, I feel like David Ross has done pretty well at that. So,
I think I agree with that. He and Joe are not. I don't think that David Ross would have run Steve Cishek into the ground the same way. The only thing, if we are looking at, and now Ross has been open about this, that he still needs to learn and that he's he's open to, he knows he's a work in progress, right? So I appreciate that.
His first managing job.
Yeah. Last year, though, there were definitely times you kind of look at 2021 in two parts, right? There was the competitive part and then the obviously very much not so competitive part. There felt like there was a lack of urgency in the way he managed a lot in that first part. A lot of like getaway day lineups when you could have gone for a sweep. A lot of bringing in, and I know you wanted to get younger guys in the bullpen opportunities and stuff like that, but there felt like there were a lot of times where I wanted more of a like, dude, go win the game. You're in first place or you're competing in a division right now, pre-sell-off. Like, go win the game. And even like, I know he didn't build the rotation and there weren't that many great options, but we always look at that, the blown lead in Milwaukee with Jake Arrieta as kind of like, this is where the wheels really fell off. This cemented the sell-off. We all knew Jake was going to blow that lead. And Ross waited until he did it to take him out. And that's like one of those spots where it's like, that's something when we go into this year, we'll see what their competitiveness is, but I'd like to see some improvement on that. There was a certain guy playing second base a lot in the first half last year. That raised a lot of questions. Like, David, you're running out a sub-replacement level player at second base on an almost daily basis. What's going on? Like, you're a first-place team,
I want to defend Joe Madden and David Ross and just say, respect your elders, kids. Respect your elders. Right, grandparents are to be respected.
Well, I'm getting, you're at the age, but I'm getting to the age now where like a lot of the players coming in are starting to be younger than me. I'm seeing juniors of players that I was watching when I was growing up. So at some point, somebody's going to be managing the Cubs that's younger than me. Tommy Hotovy, I think, is like pushing it a little bit.
I thought you looked a little slower walking in today. I didn't want to say anything, but I thought he's got a little hitch there.
And I didn't mean to put Joe Madden down. Obviously, Joe Madden's the manager for the team that won the World Series and brought so much success and changed the entire culture or helped change the entire culture. I just think at the end, I think majority of the fan base was ready for him to move on because we just knew what he was going to do every day with the different lineups. And, like I said, the bullpen, you mentioned Steve Cishek, like, he was really good, but at the end of the year, he was always like trending down because Joe Madden used him way too much. And so with David Ross at this point, like the few things he mentioned that we can criticize, like you need to get better at that. You also wonder like if the front office told him, like
absolutely.
do this or that because
he doesn't build the roster.
Sure. Right, because we're at at those points, maybe they were thinking maybe this thing just isn't going to ride out. And fans don't have to like that. They don't have to support that, like to purposely lose, I guess, in a way. But I don't think, like, when he signed after Madden was fired, a lot of people thought he was going to come in and be like a yes man and like basically listen to whatever the front office says. I don't think that's really been the case. I feel like he's really made an impact in the clubhouse and has made, like, in big games that when we felt like they were in it, made moves that, like, you could look back and be like, well, if he doesn't make that, I don't know if the Cubs win. So, yeah, I mean, again, there's still a lot to prove, but overall, I think he's deserving of this extension for a few more years.
We got a chat from Rachel.
That's what I was just going to say. This is a good one.
I wonder if it'll help when he's managing less of his friends. No judgment. It must just be a weird position to be in sometimes.
Did you ever think it was a problem?
No.
Did you notice? So, I mean, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but did you ever feel like it was a problem?
No. And
that's
to
good.
Me, I obviously I understand why that came up when he got hired.
Sure.
I mean, he won a World Series with these players. But when you read enough of the quotes, especially from guys like Lester, where they were like, look, this isn't going to be an issue. Like, he's here to win. He's here to do his job. And, I don't think so. I mean, he took some players out, sat them down. I know, people were like they wondered, Rizzo didn't get that treatment when I think he got picked off or missed a base, but Wilson did get that treatment. So, some of that stuff has to work itself out. But there was never an instance where I was like, oh, he's babying this guy because he hangs out with him. I didn't feel that.
I wonder if he'll enjoy it more, not managing his friends, just a crop of new young players and getting a fresh start. I mean, it had to be slightly awkward, even though he was one of the key leaders on the championship team and clearly was a guy who would have done that to a lot of those guys anyway if they weren't giving 100% or whatever the problem might have been. But I just wonder if he's going to enjoy it more. I think that's an interesting question to ask him. If you get the opportunity here at spring training.
Hey.
I think whether he was able, I think he handled it well, but I'm sure it's easier and just better for him, like, clean slate. I'm coaching these guys. I don't have too much of a past relationship.
All right, let's go on to what a lot of people on the chat are also wondering, and people talking about free agency, because we've seen Buster Olney is one of the guys that's tweeted it's fast and furious. There's all these deals on the table. We've seen at least one go down today, but we're waiting for the Cubs to get involved in this. And we mentioned yesterday, we figure it's going to be less than 10 days before a lot of these guys are gone, because they're going to have to start to build these with only 3.5 weeks of spring training. You've got to build your roster pretty quickly. So if it's a trade going on or signing a free agent, John Morosi of MLB Network had the tweet that got us really going a little bit, gave us the feels. Cubs among the favorites to sign Carlos Correa, and that they had talked about it beforehand. So, if we had an alarm going off, I would say that sets off an alarm. That is exciting news if you're a Cubs fan, to hear someone as respected as John Morosi say, they're in this mix, because there's reporters out there. I'm not naming any names. I'll just tell you, John Morosi is a guy you can trust. Yeah. That is a name you can trust. And if he tells you they're in the mix, they're in the mix somehow. They may not be the favorites, but they're in the mix.
Buster Olney, I believe, said the same thing.
Yeah.
So
there's some smoke. But that Scottie Pippen gif from when Jordan was playing baseball and he points at the logo on his shoe and he does this?
Right.
That's me and Correa. Come on. Bring it. Stroman wants him.
That's you and Stroman,
I want him.
right?
Yeah, Stroman's recruiting hard.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? We were saying yesterday, we feel like he knows something. Yeah. You don't put yourself out there just recruiting some guy publicly if you think there's no chance that your team's going to do it.
It would seem to indicate that he was maybe not led to believe they're going to go spend hundreds of $1 million this offseason and blow past the luxury tax, but he's definitely tweeting like someone who's expecting to be joined by some other solid players, or as we were discussing before, he's going to be sorely disappointed if that's not the case, because he's active out there. He wants him.
You said Stroman probably knows something. We don't get to talk to Carlos Correa every day. Marcus Stroman is like the players are like a fraternity.
Sure, he could have talked to him.
He went out, talked to Correa, and there's no tampering when it's player on players. It was like Stroman's probably like texting Correa all offseason, like, hey, what are you thinking, man? Wrigley Field be a cool place to play. I know Correa's said, during the playoffs last year, Gordon Wittenmeyer's we interviewed him and he's like, I loved Wrigley Field when he had that workout there back in 2012. Yeah. So he enjoys playing it. Well, he hasn't played at Wrigley Field since he came up, but he likes Wrigley Field. You got Stroman out there probably talking his ear off every day. You never know.
And I'm not saying this conversation happened. I just know that this type of conversation does happen. It's possible that Stroman would have gone before he even signed and said to Correa, they've told me they're going to sign another big player, an everyday player. Would you be interested? Sometimes just that conversation like, yeah, dude, let's team up. I'll make it happen when you make it happen. I'm not saying that's gone down, but that type of thing does happen.
Well, and just given how outspoken and active Marcus has been on social media, I would be curious to see what happens if the Cubs don't do anything, because he's certainly making it known that he wants, what do you say, like, come on, Carlos, like, we got to get Wrigley Field rocking. Like, be interesting if they sit another offseason out, and then Marcus is like, oh, well, that didn't work.
It would, first off, I love the fact that Marcus Stroman is on social media and just, like, basically recruiting, because I felt like you never got that from any of the other players from the last era. And I feel like a lot of that, honestly, it's good for the game, because, like, you see that a lot in the NBA and even the NFL, I feel like. I've never really seen a lot of that with baseball. I feel like it's, like, Marcus Stroman is a great, like, ambassador for creating new fans and stuff like that, just with something like that, right? Yeah. It doesn't, like, it might not scream it or say it, but, like, for us to talk about, it kind of lets you, it might help other fans realize just how much he's helping the game itself by, just having a relationship with Carlos Correa, and clearly he's a big name out there. I genuinely hope that there's something there. I'm indifferent about Correa in general about coming to the Cubs, but if it happens, I'll be happy about it. If it doesn't happen, I'll probably be okay as well.
Well, I think your point when I was here last on Wednesday is kind of how I'm looking at this. Like, where you were saying I don't care so much about Correa, but the money's there, make the team better. And I think that's kind of where I am. Like, I'm shooting for the moon. Like, I want Correa. Like, let's just build this next era. Let's go. You need a shortstop. He's great. But at the bare minimum, like, spend some money, make this team more interesting, make it more competitive, build toward what Jed said they were going to try to do. Like, we're not going all in, but we should be able to make the team competitive. So, like, that's the baseline. Just don't do nothing. Don't, let's not go into April 7th being able to completely write this team off, right? Like, no chance, that there's no way.
All right, let's take the hype then to the next level. I do see that Paul is down there saying, okay, Nico, Correa, Madrigal, who plays where? I don't care. Correa plays short, and the other two guys play somewhere else.
Yeah.
I will say this. If you had to pick one of these two things happening financially, if you're Jed Hoyer and you know what your money per string is at, if you had an option of re-signing and extending Wilson Contreras to a long-term deal, or adding Carlos Correa in free agency, and then you have to trade Wilson Contreras because you're financially saying you're a little strapped or being told you're a little strapped, which would you do?
It's very interesting.
I'm gonna pass for now and let.
I can go first because I'm pretty ready for that. I'm signing Carlos Correa.
If it meant getting Correa, you would be. If that was the choice, you get Correa, but now you're going to have to trade Wilson Contreras. You'd be cool with that.
I would be very disappointed in, like, the ownership situation
Correct.
if that were the choice, because
Correct.
you should just do both, right? Wilson should get an extension.
As long as it's their money, sure.
If I'm, I'm a season ticket holder.
Yeah,
I'm contributing. I'm a voting member.
Oh,
of the
we
board.
saw your tickets. You got your opening day tickets ready to go.
Yeah, and I want to see Carlos Correa there, behind Kyle Hendricks. But I think, like, he's just one of those talents that, even though he's going to command a longer-term deal, he's going to be worth it to this team. You have to bridge that gap till Christian Hernandez, Ed Howard, Reggie Preciado. Like, that's years down the road here, and you have to bridge that gap. And I like Nico, but I think at the moment we know he can be a plus defender at second base. We don't really know that at shortstop, and I think probably closer to average, a little above average. Correa's just an elite talent, and I think you need that group. Catcher's a tough position to fill, but
it's a real tough position to fill.
So shortstop,
That's
so
true.
Although
it appears there are more in the Cubs system further down the line than there are catchers.
Sure. Yeah, Miguel Amaya having the arm
hurt.
injury really hurt, because I think you were kind of, and like where he was timeline-wise, I think would have made this question a lot easier to answer.
More seamless of a transition.
Yeah, you're making a lot of points, and I think you might have flipped me because
try.
I think that before you spoke, I was like, I'd probably just keep Wilson and go for a guy like Trevor Story, but man, you're exactly right about everything about Correa, and I guess it would suck to see Wilson leave. It just is like, for forever, I felt like we were looking to have like a catcher to be behind.
That's right.
Behind home base for like a decade or two, similar to like Yachty has been down in St. Louis. And like, I just have always viewed Wilson to be that guy for the Cubs until I'm in like my 40s or some shit.
Didn't we just do a fantasy draft where he was
number one?
Number one because he's the best catcher the Cubs have had.
He should be that guy in this
my
scenario
lifetime.
where pinching pennies a little bit to make one decision over the other. But I do want to clarify, I love Wilson Contreras.
Right. You would prefer they both are there, but if you were forced to do one of the two things,
you
would be willing to sacrifice.
Carlos Correa was almost a 6-win, WAR player last year. Like, there's not many of those.
Yeah.
So
I'm just gonna argue the other side for the sake of arguing. I guess I'll do my my
I like that.
my
I
first
like that.
take, Stephen A. Smith kind of thing. Wilson Contreras at this point, especially with the sell-off last year, Wilson Contreras is like the face of the franchise. Mm-hmm. He's the emotional leader, the leader of the clubhouse. He's the soul of the team. He's, like you guys said, the best catcher that any of us have probably seen in our lifetimes on the Cubs. Mm-hmm. And you don't get many guys. He's improved tremendously on defense. He's one of the best hitting catchers in the majors. You don't get that mix of catcher throughout the league ever. Nope. You really don't get that. You have a really good hitting catcher who's kind of iffy on defense, or you get the other way around. But Contreras has gotten to a point where he's a good mix of both. And I don't think especially he's up, he's been a Cub the whole time. He's the last of like the 2016 World Series guys, and he's a guy you could still build the team around because he's relatively young enough, but whatever. I just don't think you get rid of that to go after a guy who's going to command a large part of the luxury tax or the CBT, whatever you want to call it. And you could go out and you can get a guy like you mentioned, Trevor Story, who's going to come with less years. He's going to be cheaper, and you're not committing 10 years to him when both those guys hit 37 the same year. Who knows what kind of player they are in 10 years? 10-year contracts don't generally work out that much, so.
Not at the end, for sure.
Yeah, and then with the money you save on that, obviously you're going to pay Story a little more up front. You're going to get Contreras his extension, but then you're going to go out and be able to plug in a few other positions around the field, the pitching staff, starters, bullpen, whatever you do with that money you save. So
I love Joey's
devil's advocate. I like that.
I think it's totally fair on both sides.
We're not saying this is actually the position the Cubs are necessarily in. They're not making this, but like it could be.
It really could be.
It could be. And for me, I'll take the devil's advocate side too. I think Carlos Correa is a great player, and I'd be very happy if he was on the Cubs, whatever it took to get him. But the emotional part of me as a Cubs fan says I've got to have a key piece of that championship team that moves forward with the next group. Somebody has to be there. And Rizzo's gone. Bryant's gone. Javi's gone. They're gone. Like Schwarber's gone. I need somebody, and he's that emotional cheerleader. He's the guy who will hit a home run and talk trash going down to first base that gets Wrigley Field fired up.
Go to war for.
Yeah. He is, and he's our guy.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a guy that's not our guy that was associated with something. I'd forgive him for all of it if he put on a Cubs uniform.
Yeah.
But I want to go to bat for our guy because he's like the last man standing from the most magical group the Cubs have ever had.
Yeah. Joey called me Ryan A. Smith, so I'm going to have to do my best impression of that. You cannot trade Wilson Contreras. He is a warrior. He is a warrior. He is the emotional leader. You get rid of Wilson Contreras, you might as well get rid of the Cubs. Because he is a Cub. He should be a Cub for life. That's all I'm going to say about that.
There's our new segment, Ryan A. Smith.
Ryan A. Smith. They ripped my heart out on July 31st last year. So my emotional connection to 2016 is always there. But they've already hurt me too much. They can't do it anymore.
Cody likes to be hurt, he said. He always looks forward to that.
I love to get up to be hurt. That's the thing.
Like he's ready to be hurt again, but when it happens, it's...
Do you want to quickly address what Paul was saying? Like, where would you play guys? Obviously, Correa is your shortstop. What would you do with Madrigal and Horner?
Yeah,
I think it sort of depends on whether you're bringing anybody else specifically to DH. We've talked about Schwarbs and guys like that, or if you're bringing Rizzo back and moving Frank there. But I think, Nico sort of becomes Ben Zobrist light. You can put him pretty much anywhere. They've tried him in the outfield. He's taken a lot of reps all over the field. I know he was doing that the other day in the PA camp. And, you just move stuff around. I think that's a problem for...
Nico looked jacked, by the way.
Yeah.
Saw the photos of him arriving
different.
at camp. It was like, he's built.
They said he was hitting bombs yesterday, too.
So if he adds a little more power to his plus fielding at second base... Maybe you have something that you really, like that changes the game a little bit if Nico comes out and all of a sudden is a power-hitting second baseman who plays plus defense in the I'd like that. And then Madrigal, you can be the guy that moves around too a little bit.
Yeah. Madrigal is interesting because we just don't really know exactly what he is, but I feel like you can say the same thing about Nico because remember, Nico got called up into 2019 in an emergency situation because Javi got hurt.
Right. Wouldn't have been brought up
way early.
And then 2020 probably because of COVID and how things happened, they put him on the roster. But in my opinion, at least, I don't think he would have started the year with the Cubs if it would have been regular. I feel like they would have put him back in the minors in 2020. And then if he made his way up, maybe get called back up later. And then last year, I felt like he had a lot of really nice stretches and had some moments. So he's coming in looking like this, maybe adding some more power, maybe hit the gaps a little bit more. to go with that plus defense, I mean, yeah, I'd love to see him at second base. He was great defensively over there.
I do hope we see that, though, because that's been sort of the thing with him. And, Madrigal's a heavy contact guy. Both of them not expected to bring power, but that was the thing with Nico last year, is that, just the slug wasn't really there.
Right.
And, at some point you do want to see that, right?
But
contact is good.
It obviously still could happen.
You'd like him to be able to hit 10 to 15 of them a year. That's an infield, your second baseman that can do that. That's solid. You can be okay with that. I mean, there's only so many Javi Baez's out there. So,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. If I had to bet money on it, I'd say Madrigal.
You mentioned betting?
Yeah, betting. I'm saying Madrigal is second base, and Nico's just going all over the place if Correa is a Cub when the regular season starts.
Cody, that seems like a beautiful segue into our proud sponsor.
Well, if you're betting and MLB futures are back, you can bet the Cubs to win the World Series at plus 10,000. We talked about it on the bet show today. Not saying it's going to happen, but if you want to
before they sign Correa,
get it before they sign Correa. A little sprinkle, a little $5, and you got your next month's rent on the Chicago Cubs. But in the best way you can place that bet is at PointsBet, which is the best way to support CHGO. Is to download the PointsBet app and use code CHGO when you sign up. If you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker room. #dope merch. If you have any questions, email pointsbet@allchgo.com, and we'll help you. Remember that PointsBet is your home for live in-game betting. They even have a new exclusive feature, live NBA same-game parlay. For the first time ever, build the perfect live same-game parlay only with PointsBet. Combine your favorite bets anytime during the game. You can even boost your live same-game parlays. And now, online signups are available in Illinois. You can actually download the PointsBet app right now and register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. Luke did it the other day. I helped him place a bet today as well.
Today's my first ever legal bet.
Hell yeah.
This is it tonight. This is the one.
We're riding Michigan State plus 3, baby.
And if they lose, there's going to be a problem around here.
I'm going to have to get mine in before I head down.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
He told me this is his lock of the night.
Michigan State plus 3. So anyway, signing up with the fastest sportsbook is now easier than ever. You can start living your bet life in seconds. Use code CHGO to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
Okay, USA Today put out their list of top 30 free agents that were out there. A couple of them have come off the list now, but their top 5 were Correa, Trevor Story, Freddie Freeman, Nick Castellanos, and Chris Bryant. So, first of all, I'm a little surprised that Castellanos is ahead of Bryant. And I think the fun thing is, and a lot of people have expected this, the rumor is that Bryce Harper is trying to recruit Bryant to join him in Philly, the buddies playing together for Joe Girardi in Philadelphia. That'd be kind of cool if that's where he ends up. Here's what I say about a long list of guys. As long as they don't end up with the Cardinals. Don't ever show me. Lester was hard for you to see in a Cardinals uniform, I would imagine.
It was. Yes,
yeah.
Luke,
Can you imagine what Chris Bryant would be like? Very difficult.
I would prefer not to think about it.
Yeah, I'd rather not think about it either.
Not near dinner time, huh?
No. But I don't think he's going to go to St. Louis. They don't like him down there.
Are you surprised that Bryant is lower than Castellanos and even?
Well, Freeman should be higher than Story.
Yeah.
Right. That's also like.
I think they got Correa placed right at number 1. I think he's number, even though he's going to command the most money in most years, probably. He's the number 1 free agent on the market.
Jed's writing that check right now. I feel it.
He's just did it.
Pulling it out.
And
house is on the market. Correa's ready.
Yeah, Correa's house is on the market. I have a spare bedroom at my house. Just throwing that out there. It has nothing to do with Carlos Correa, but
and we got room here.
We
as we mentioned, we got plenty of space.
We'll make it work. Just like Nico, Madrigal, Correa. Where are they playing? We'll find somewhere for Carlos Correa to live in Chicago. We got it.
Yeah, I think Chris Bryant should be ahead of Nick Castellanos just for his versatility as a defender. I think any team wants a guy that can play 4 or 5 different positions for them versus Castellanos is probably best served as a DH at this point in his career. If he has to play right field, he can, but I think he'd much rather just be big stick Nick with a bat in his hands and that's it. So I'd probably move Bryant above him, but I think the top 5 is fine. It's just where they're placed maybe is not how I would do it, but
right. Well, but this is important. Joey is chiming in, even though he's not at work today. He's saying, pack sunscreen. He wants to make sure you're okay. 50 plus. Wants to make sure you've got that. And then Mark Joyce is saying St. Louis is boring.
Shout out obvious shirts.
Shout out. That is a good obvious shirt.
It is one of my favorites. Yeah.
And it's one of the better Cubs quotes over the last 10 years. It's a good one.
It was so taken out of context.
Right.
It was
so harmless.
Completely.
And it was so great how St. Louis fans just
that Yadier Molina was so offended by it.
That quote lived in their heads. Probably still does.
Still does.
He's going to get booed there the rest of his career, not because he won a World Series and an MVP as a Chicago Cub, but because he, in a lighthearted, wasn't it like a kids panel at CubsCon?
It was at the Cubs convention with Ryan Dempster.
Even if he wasn't joking, it is boring. St. Louis.
We will clearly say it's boring.
I've spent time in St. Louis with several teams in town, and whenever you're there, like, well, what do I do? Walk to the arch? 10 o'clock, you're like, is anything open? Yep. No. The answer is no.
I went to school in Missouri. I have plenty of St. Louis friends, let me tell you.
And is St. Louis boring?
Yes.
So we're just, this is just factual stuff. Chris Bryant was actually joking about it. I am not. It is a boring place. That's okay.
We can all agree on that. If there's anything we'll ever be able to agree on.
So let's zoom out a little bit instead of that list of top 5 and look at some position players that are free agents, all right? Correa, Story, Freeman. Michael Conforto was on that list of top 30. You got Rizzo, Bryant, Schwarber, Soler, Jock Peterson, Nick Castellanos, Eddie Rosario. Let's say the Correa thing doesn't happen. What's the next best mixture in there? Or is there something they could do that's cost effective that you'd actually like that move if they did it? Is there, in that group, is there somebody that really, we've talked about the former Cubs a lot. We think, Schwarber would be a good fit. Rizzo coming back and playing first base would be a good fit. I know Nick Castellanos, all of them. But what about some of the other guys, whether it's Rosario, Conforto?
Conforto would be nice. I know the White Sox are huge on him, but, another left-handed bat. I don't know. He definitely doesn't have nearly as much power as Schwarber, but I wouldn't be upset about bringing Conforto to the north side.
No, yeah. I think you said if Correa doesn't work out, I think Story is like the guy you go after for sure. You try to see what you can get, or see if you can get Story.
Because of the position?
Just because of the position, yeah. So I think that's the number one. I liked Eddie Rosario, especially in the playoffs. Like, he was good.
Great.
And what was his last contract? We said it last time, like a year, $8 million, something like that.
Yeah, and wasn't he the NLCS MVP?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. And I don't think he's not going to be that cheap again, but you're not going to break the bank to bring Eddie Rosario, and I think he'll fit in well in that outfield, because the Cubs are just looking for outfielders all over the place right now. But obviously, my number one, if Correa doesn't work out, is Story for the position. And then if you want to go a little cheaper, Eddie Rosario, I think, is a really good option on that list.
The CHGO Sox podcast was right before us, and they were pounding Schwarber to the Sox. They want Schwarber in a Sox uniform. And that would hurt a lot of Cubs fans, too, to see him on the other side of town.
I would also, though, remember how much shit they talked during his years with the Cubs and how he was just a DH and he can't play defense. I will not forget.
You're not going to forget. You've got it marked down.
Yeah. Freezing cold takes. Great account on Twitter. Never forget, never forgive. I'm just saying.
I think that's a pretty good crop of free agents to pick from. It's not like a bad year to have. We don't really know what the Cubs have. Is it 45? Is it 50, 55, 60 million that they could spend? Like, what is their free agent pool? But there's been worse years to be looking for a player or two on free agency. I like that they have some money and they can at least pick from this list. It's a pretty good list. The one we built, I like that list.
Yeah, and I think like the Eddie Rosario types, we were talking about it before we went on. I think Kyle Seager, who retired, was a really perfect option for this, just given his age. But Rosario is one of those guys who, I think you can probably get on the terms that Jet is looking for, short term, maybe bump up the annual value a little bit to bring him in. but they're not going to break the bank, and they're not going to affect your kind of longer timeline. I think there's going to be a lot of those guys. The other thing, like, I'm not big on it, but curious if they would look at someone like Andrelton Simmons, Jose Iglesias, a more glove first, or in those two guys' cases, glove only kind of guys.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how everybody would feel about that, but they do still have to address at some point, or not address, I guess. You have a heavy ground ball staff, especially those top three guys.
That's a great point.
They're going to generate a ton of ground balls, and at the moment, you do not have the defense to vacuum all of that up, right? They had a lot of success with that in 2016. They had one of the best defenses of all time. And
maybe the most underrated part of that team.
Yeah, and you had a pitching staff that was pound the ball into the ground. They're going to scoop it up, convert it into outs. It works out great for everybody. You're doing half of that heading into 2022, but, Wisdom, good over at third, great arm, but Nico moving to short, not as good as he is at second. I think Madrigal's just okay at second. Frank, not the best first baseman, so you've got kind of a conflicting strategy at the moment, whether they decide to address that. Carlos Correa certainly addresses that.
Speaking of, Nick wants to point out, did anyone notice that he put his house on the market in Houston?
Yeah.
Why, yes, we did. We sure did. So maybe he's not going back to Houston. That's hopeful. Again, we haven't seen him out here in the West Loop looking at places yet. But
tinfoil hat moment there, right?
John Lester recently put his house in Wrigleyville on the market. Might just be like an easy
swap.
Talk to the realtor.
That happens
there,
too. Like,
right?
hey man, rent my place for a year.
Kind of a similar money range, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Rossi told me you needed a place.
It's a little nicer than my place in Wrigleyville.
I didn't know
I've
that.
walked past it.
I didn't know that Lester put his house on the market. I'm not surprised that you knew that, Corey. Like that seems like a fact that you would know for sure.
I know everything.
Right.
No.
How about key pitching free agents? Because we also think that that's a place that the Cubs need to dabble a little bit in free agency. Obviously, we believe that position player with Correa, whoever it might be, is important, but we do think they need a starter we've agreed on, and we believe they need, because of Cody Hoyer's injury, a high-leverage reliever being added to the team. So you may not get all three of those in free agency. You might not get the position player, the starter. You might just get one of the three. But if these are some pitchers that are available – now, we had Carlos Rodon on here, and right before the podcast, signs with the Giants, 2 for $44 million.
And a player option on the second.
Yeah.
So
I would have given him that deal in a heartbeat.
If you were the Cubs, you would have been cool with that?
Yeah, 2-year deal player.
Because
if he
the
does,
Sox guys were mixed on that a little bit. They were like,
they were pretty mixed.
hot and cold.
I would like that deal because if he does really well this year, which I think he will, I mean, I would have given him the
He's healthy.
I would have liked the 1-year deal better, but if he wanted a 2-year deal, he does really well this year. If he's healthy, he's going to opt out regardless and try to get more money. So it's basically like signing him to a 1-year deal. And then if something happens and then you're kind of stuck with this contract, you're only stuck with it for another year. And I mean, does the window? I mean, maybe next year you're stuck with it, and then he goes crazy again.
You're in a position to take the risk.
Yeah,
If he's hurt or it blows up, you're not all in anyway. But if he's great, then you've really added to the rotation.
The Giants, they're kind of in this like weird situation. I mean, they were great last year, right? But Buster Posey retired, and their team's a lot older. He could go off, and who knows? Maybe they're trading him at the deadline. Like that'd be so wild. Like I'm just throwing it out there. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it could happen. So, especially if like they fall out of contention. But yeah, no, I would have been okay if the Cubs would have given him that contract too.
I think it would have been all right. Now, again, if that impacted signing Correa or somebody else higher up, then I would have said hold off on that. Joel Nielsen saying, please pass on Kenley Jansen. So of our little list of pitchers, although he might want bullpen help, Joel does not want Kenley Jansen. Would that be a bad signing? On a reasonable contract?
On a reason.
You don't want to overpay.
I don't think you're going to get a reasonable contract.
No, I don't either.
If he's got a no trade, if he wants a no trade clause with someone of his stature, could certainly demand. It's less interesting, right? Because I think that would be kind of you'd want that option if you're the Cubs. But we just talked about this the other day. Like, you don't have a lot of stability in that bullpen, and he's getting up there in age, but he continues to go out there and be really
An
solid.
all-time great,
So
honestly, when it comes to what he does.
Yeah, a veteran arm to that mix, whether, we mentioned Tepera coming back and maybe recapturing the magic with Tommy Hotovy. And, I don't know what the answer is out of that pitching group. It sounds like Clayton Kershaw, at least the rumors are that he might be going back to the Dodgers. We've said we'd like the Sheriff to come back, right?
Yeah.
But a veteran arm would be nice to add to the mix.
The only thing about that, though, is when you're talking about, like, does one move impact the ability to make others? If I have one impact move to make, I'm not signing Kenley Jansen. No. You know what I mean? Like, I'm spreading that around the offense.
Agreed.
Like, forget that.
Ryan
you can get
Tepera,
Especially if there's a no trade clause, then it's completely
Right. I think Ryan Tepera makes the most sense of those four. We were talking about it earlier. He was great all of last year. He was great with the Cubs, and he went to the White Sox, and he outperformed even their fans' expectations. So, personally, I'd love to bring Ryan Tepera back. Love Andrew Chafin as well. That guy's a vibe. But because of the bullpen. But if someone could just slide in and take Cody Hoyer's spot for this year, like Ryan Tepera would be that guy. Like he not only last year, but even the year before, Ryan Tepera was like incredible. Again, the Cubs just find a way to find these random bullpen arms, and he's a great example. Like they got great value when they moved him to the Sox. I think they got Bailey Horn for him.
You just hope it works again because relievers that are kind of like middle relievers and you're not sure and they come out of nowhere and have a good season the next year. I don't know what the percentage is, but just my eyeballs would tell you that it's probably not great.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Cody. I think Tepera, out of those, on the board we put up there, Tepera is probably the best option to go with. I think it's not going to cost as much as some of the other guys, and but I mean, Tepera was great last year, like you said, the whole year. And maybe Rick Hummel maybe he didn't accidentally give him an MVP vote on, maybe it was on purpose and he didn't want people to make fun of him. Like maybe Ryan Tepera was awesome last year. I'm like maybe that MVP vote was for a reason.
Every time he would have a good inning, I would always tweet, Ryan Tepera got an MVP vote for a reason.
Yeah, commish, man, commish.
Every time.
He knew something we didn't at the time.
Yeah.
I'm betting that the Cubs will make a free agent signing as soon as the podcast is over. That's the way it usually
I've been
works.
checking Twitter. I was kind of expecting it, but
I have a tweet from Hector Gomez. He says the Blue Jays, Cubs, Red Sox, and Dodgers have shown interest in infielder Jonathan Villar. That's nothing crazy, but it sounds like a depth piece.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not Carlos Correa.
It's not Carlos Correa.
That's not the signing that's going to get everybody running to the gates at Wrigley.
It's not tweeted by Ken Rosenthal or Jeff Passan, but nothing against Hector Gomez. I don't know him too well personally. So
let's just agree that a deal will be done this weekend with somebody. I mean, right? They have to get something done by this weekend.
Yeah. They're not going to stay.
They're not waiting till Monday to sign somebody or trade somebody. I think one of the two things will happen before Monday.
Yeah, especially with Sunday being the mandatory report date. That gives you 2 days to figure something out. Like you want as many of the guys that you're going to count on next year there on Sunday, ready to go at the beginning of spring training.
When we saw that the spring training schedule's out, the Cubs are opening next Friday against the Giants, right? On the 18th?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things that stuck out for this process is that, your guys showed up in camp today. So obviously you can't control when the moves get made, but I think if you're Jed Hoyer, Carter, and David Ross, you'd probably like to get some of this stuff ironed out, right? Kind of quickly. Ian Happ was doing an interview today where he kind of alluded to I don't think that we have our full team just yet, but we'll see. And on the back of my head, I'm going, well, I wonder if you're in that plan. I'm not really sure about that, but yeah, I think you want to get that figured out by the time you're playing games so that stuff can come together.
We want to take another break to say thank you to our beautiful sponsor, PointsBet. Again, we're pounding Michigan State. 3.5 points we're getting. I got $10 on this.
Oh, yes.
$10
and Grandpa
on this deal
Stuckey
tonight.
are riding together tonight. It is incredible.
So,
and I'm a little nervous.
If you want to join Cody and Grandpa Stuckey on the Michigan State plus
Michigan
3 train?
State
You want to hop on that train? Listen up. If you enjoy CHGO, one way to help us continue to grow is to download the PointsBet app. and use code CHGO when you sign up. Not only are you going to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000, but if you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker, #DopeMerch. If you have any questions, email pointsbet@allchgo.com, and we'll help you out. And in case you missed it, online sign-up is available in Illinois. You can actually download the PointsBet app right now, register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. You'll be signing up with the fastest sportsbook easier than ever, so you can start living your bet life in seconds. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet, live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Marcus Stroman at the end.
I wonder how PointsBet would feel if we played some inspirational music underneath that. I feel like really get you going to get the app open. With the code CHGO, so you get your free stuff. Speaking of CHGO, we've had a great time. We're a full week now.
Full week.
Up and operational. We've got podcasts, live shows, every team, every day. Post-game shows. The Bulls and Blackhawks are doing the post-game. Thank goodness we're going to have post-game shows for the Cubs and White Sox coming up here soon. The Sky podcast is getting underway. We've got, as the Californians say, dope merch for every team for you. Free shirts when you become a member. Members only Discord, the CHGO Lounge, where we are working on a velvet robe as we speak. We do want to point out that, and Clark, our producer, has put on his Obvious Shirts T-shirt, Les Grobstein forever. Les Grobstein, longtime reporter here in Chicago, passed away this year. We lost him, and he is known as the Lee Ilya rant guy. Now, the mayor actually made today officially declared it Les Grobstein Day in Chicago. So for the Grobber, what we're going to do, April 29th, 1983, he recorded Lee Ilya, the manager, ranting after a game. He's the only one who had a recording of it, was Les Grobstein. Why? Because Les carried a recorder with him everywhere for most of his life. I believe Mark Giangreco was there, but Les is the guy that had it, and it's the reason we can all go online and listen to the rant forever. 38 F-bombs in a post-game rant after the Cubs had started the season 5-14, and the fans were dogging some of his players after the game. Lee Ilya wasn't mad, and Les Grobstein was rolling tape.
We're mired now in a little difficulty. We got all these so-called fans that come out here and say they're Cub fans that are supposed to be behind you, ripping every thing you do. I'll tell you one thing. I hope we get hotter than just to stuff it up than 3,000 people that show up every day. Because if they're the real Chicago fans, they can kiss my right downtown and print it. What the am I supposed to do? Go out there and let my players get destroyed every day and be quiet about it for the nickel-dime people that show up?
Before the 38 F-bomb.
That's why they're out of the game. They want to go out and get a job and find out what it's like to go out there and a living. 85% of the world's working. The other 15 come out here. The playground for the rip them like the players.
So, I mean, that's just part of it. If you want to hear the whole thing, you can go online, and there's an unbleeped version if you really want to know what he was saying. But, forever thankful to the Grobber for that and for all the late-night radio that he did overnights by himself, taking the crazy calls from crazy Cubs fans, Sox fans, Bulls, Blackhawks. But that rant that he recorded made me think, what's the most angry you've ever been as a Cubs fan? I'm hoping that's as angry as Lee Ilya ever got. But do you have a point in your Cub fandom where you say, yep, that's where I peaked at my fury right there?
I think, and this might just be me, I think you guys can all agree that this one sucks, but 2017 NLCS was a game 2, I think, or game 1, whatever it was, when Joe Madden puts in John Lackey with Justin Turner at the plate, and then everyone knew what was going to happen. Like, I didn't even have to look at the screen to know what was going to happen, and then it goes and happens. Justin Turner hits a walk-off home run off John Lackey. Like, it's just like, was it Lackey led the league in home runs allowed that year or something like that?
He had never pitched out of the bullpen in his career. And this is John Lackey at the end of his career. It was, that home run was like the last pitch he threw. I want to say that was the last pitch he threw.
I hope it was. But then
he
it was,
had his
then it was
jewelry.
Justin
He already
Turner.
had his jewelry.
Yeah, that's true.
It was against Justin Turner, who like became the best hitter on the planet, like out of nowhere. And you're throwing John Lackey against him.
I'm mad about it. Hearing that was going to be mine. I have an older one that I can go to.
We don't have a bleep machine. Don't start your rant.
You brought in a pitcher that led the league in home run rate, like 5 all per home run rate, and you let him pitch to a guy that was either at the top of the league or near the top of the league in the reverse, like how many home runs go for fly balls. Justin Turner's like the poster boy for the launch angle revolution.
Yeah.
And you brought in a guy serving up home runs. And just like you said, Ryan, there was one way that
was it
one
for you.
outcome for that.
So you're
at-bat.
taking the same play.
No, you know how Dr. Strange...
Same moment. Oh, you're not. You've got a different
I was going to say that.
You know how Dr. Strange is like 14 million and 6 outcomes from the Avengers, whatever? There was he went. Dr. Strange looked. There was one outcome.
There was
no
outcome.
other outcome.
Yeah. No, Justin Turner's definitely going to hit a home run.
Corey, what's yours?
Well, so I would have said that, but I'll go back to my childhood. I just always remember this as sort of the moment where my mom must have realized, like, okay, we've got a problem with his affinity for the Cubs here. It was I believe the Cubs and the Phillies. And LaTroy Hawkins was on the mound. The bases were loaded. The Cubs were winning by a run with, I believe, 1 out in the 9th inning. And LaTroy catches a liner back on the mound and does like a pump to first. And he throws to first to try to double the guy off. Now, he's never going to get him. Guy's already back at first. It hits the runner in the helmet, bounces into the stands, 2 runs score, and the Cubs lose the game.
Hashtag that's Cub.
Yeah, and I think we had like a dog, like grate, or something like blocking off a room that I, probably picked up and threw across the thing. And this is like what, 2004, I think, 2004 or 2005.
Right.
So I'm only 13 or 14, but similar to the Lackey play.
Right.
I remember exactly watching it and just going, why the F did he throw the ball? Like, he was never going to get the guy. Me and LaTroy don't get along, but he made it up for us in 2015 in that early portion. Dexter Fowler, go-ahead home run. To kind of, and that was like one of those early moments.
You forgave him then. You forgave him in your heart.
In Colorado, yeah.
Which is
go
good.
ahead.
Yeah.
But it was one of those moments where in
Forgiveness is a good thing.
2015, where you're like, oh, this team is interesting. This is a fun team. Like, and that was before, of course, they're, on pace to win 97 games.
Right. All right, Cody, fire it up.
Oh, man. So when we were talking about it, I was the original one who brought that story up that Ryan made.
So Ryan stole it from 2 guys now, and then now he's getting on a plane to
They're
Arizona.
not mad about that one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
you
a
should
really
be.
good one to get mad about.
I would have said that regardless.
I'll go back to, I guess, my childhood as well. Now, I was in like 7th, 8th grade when, the 2003 playoff run happened. So, like, that one I was just more sad. I wouldn't want to say I was angry. I was just sad. But when the Cubs went to the playoffs in 2008, and I think it's the game that Carlos Zambrano started, and there was like 1,000 errors in that game, I believe. I think that was the first time my mom had to tell me that I needed to calm down because it's just a game. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is the Cubs. We won 97 games, and we are shitting our pants on national TV right now.
That's our Lee Ilya rant, our first bleep right there.
Like, that was one of – I remember being so mad because I want to say that was like Game 3 or Game 4. It was because the Dodgers swept the Cubs.
07, 08, there is no Game 4.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. So it was probably Game 2 then. And, again, I'm pretty sure it was the game that Carlos Zambrano started. And he wasn't even that bad. It was that every time the Dodgers made contact, somehow, some way, the Cubs just forgot how to field a goddamn baseball. And, like, it was like it was literally everything that you had heard your entire life about how the Cubs will always choke in the playoffs and how there's too much pressure because of the World Series drought and all this. They literally could not field the ball. It was it was the first time for me, really, that I was really angry as a Cubs fan. Pretty wild.
Marty says Milton Bradley when he threw the ball into the bleachers. That was a big one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
For me, it's not even a play. I was trying to think about it. I'm like, you know what? The most angry I've ever been was as a young kid. I never got to miss school, ever, like hardly ever. And my parents let me miss because one of my friends had tickets to a Cubs game for a day game at Wrigley Field, and they were box seats. These, you know, like we didn't have the money for Cubs tickets in general, but like box seats was like, Mom, this is an opportunity. You can't let me miss this. Like, so I'm riding in the back of a station wagon looking out the back way. I don't know. I'm just going to guess it's like 1980 or something like that. I don't know if the years line up for that. Bill Buckner at bat, and we're sitting right where the netting behind home plate, like maybe 15 rows back, starts to end. Mm-hmm. So you got a shot at a foul ball. Foul ball goes up off Bill Buckner's bat. I run over. It bounces once on the pavement, goes up in the air. I reach up, grab it with my left hand, and as I turn around to show it to my buddy, an adult takes it out of my hand and starts running the other way with it. Did he get a few boos? Yes. I still, to this day, at 50 years old, have never caught a foul ball at a spring training game, Major League Baseball game, minor league baseball game, high school baseball game. I have never caught a foul ball. I've never seen a perfect game, and I will never forgive that jackass with a mustache that took that baseball out of my hand when I was like 9 or 10. Like, that is the lowest of the low that you can get. And I wish it was social media days because I could have grabbed a picture and shamed him for life on social media.
Find this man.
It's just like my Thai guy. Cubs Twitter would know all about this guy. It was Kyle Schwarber hit a walk-off opposite field homer to left field, I want to say in like 2018 or 2019. And as the ball landed, it landed in the basket, and there was like a kid or two there. They were going to grab it, but my Thai guy just comes down in there and just grabs the ball.
Worst.
Yeah.
It's the lowest of the low, taking a ball from a little kid.
Yeah.
Stealing
we gotta get Stucky a ball. It sounds like
a foul ball.
You gotta heal that inner child.
Have you ever caught a foul ball at Wrigley?
I was tossed a ball between innings by Hisap Choi.
I mean, that kind of counts. That sort of counts.
I still have it.
But catching a foul ball or seeing a no-hitter, those are the two things I would like to do.
Well, now my seats now are 216, so balls don't get back there. They get blocked by the net. Everybody does the fake, I'm going to catch it thing.
Yeah.
So, it's
there was back in like 79, 80, whatever that was, there was barely netting behind the plate. You were lucky you didn't get a fastball in the forehead, An errant pitch from a Cubs pitcher into your grill. They were lucky if you got away with it.
I got a couple of honorable mentions.
Oh, okay, good.
One, 2019, and Craig Kimbrell against the Cardinals. Was it Yachty and Paul DeJong that hit on the
like
first
whole
two
series?
pitches?
But
It was that whole series, but that one.
Right.
They lost like 9
the
in a row.
dangling arm was wearing thin at that point.
But it was like, it was Kimbrell, first pitch, Yadier Molina home run.
Yeah.
So, okay, it's a
And
tie game.
DeJong.
Second pitch, Paul DeJong, and they lose, and that's just like, what the hell? What the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And then another one is, if you just want to go for the most famous one, Rajay Davis. Maybe that's more sad inning than
that was more
making
shocking.
Me pissed off,
that didn't make me mad. That was like I'm being sent into an existential crisis right now.
That and
like
then,
I'm gonna go jump into Lake Michigan type shit. Bro.
And then this might not be a moment, but it's just like a period of time. Just the 2018 collapse of the Cubs at the end of the season. It was just,
if you want to call it a collapse,
it was a collapse, dude. They went from first.
They won 95 games. We can debate that another day.
I will point out that Danny Murray says that riding in the back end of a
wild-card
station
game.
wagon, looking out at the drivers behind you is such a vibe. Which is
the
true.
three
You
of us
guys don't
wouldn't
even know what a station wagon really looks like.
Is that even legal
Picture
anymore?
No, it wasn't legal then.
Yeah.
Picture the family truckster from Vacation, and that's pretty much what I was riding in backwards, unstrapped.
Another honorable mention to 2007 Diamondback Series, first game. Carlos Correa has a gym going. They take out, Lou Piniella takes him out, and then after they lose the game, and after the game, Lou Piniella says that they took him out to save him for the next start or whatever.
Yeah.
And the Cubs got
Later-
swept, so he
later
didn't even
never
get to
came.
use.
All right, well,
Later never came.
You know what we just did? We killed the buzz going into basically what is St. Patrick's Day weekend here in Chicago. So
Cubs fans are good at that.
yeah, we're at
You know,
the
You
we are
can
really-
count on
Well,
us for that.
yeah, you can
wanna
count
talk
on us
about
for that.
pain, I'm here, baby.
And we've given you a base now for the low part of the day. Now Correa signs. Michigan State wins tonight. Gets me my
Plus
first ever
3.5,
legal
baby.
bet
That's
win.
right.
Points bet.
As a Michigan man, I have to at least I'm like contractually obligated to.
They could lose
no.
as long as I
tell
still
you
win.
that Michigan
Right?
State is no.
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I'm okay
I'm
with that. They
hoping
can lose
Michigan
as long as I
State
still
just-
win.
At worst, just loses by less than 4 points.
We can
That's
all
all we're
agree on
asking.
that.
Yeah.
There you go.
And we'll be back, at least 3 of us, I think, tomorrow, right? Cody and I are
Yeah.
coming back. Hopefully Ryan is in Arizona by then, safe and all tucked into his fancy hotel that he's getting to go stay at.
In the warm weather in
In
Arizona.
the warm weather with
see.
your sunscreen, young man. SPF 50. Let's remember
see.
that. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by PointsBet. Live your bet life. We will see you tomorrow and hopefully after Carlos Correa signs with the Cubs.
Let's go.